Hello students, welcome to the class of Clinical Microbiology for MSc 2 in Semester 1. This is the core compulsory theory paper 9. We had already started with the chapter Determinants of Microbial Pathogenicity. Today's topic, I will be mainly speaking about resistance to specific and non-specific humoral factors. In our previous video as well as lectures, we have already discussed resistance to the mechanism of phagocytosis and how bacteria target each and every step in phagocytosis to prevent getting killed or their action being neutralized by them. In this video, we'll be mainly talking about very specific and non-specific humoral factors such as presence of capsule, antigenic variation, how do bacteria evade the complement cascade, etc. So let us begin with the topic evading the complement system. Complement proteins are serum proteins present in the host cells and are responsible for bringing about breakdown of the host cell by formation of membrane attack complex. So usually a number of antibodies can be present on bacterial surfaces. These antibodies are bound to the bacterial surface. Antibodies have the capacity to activate the complement cascade. They can do so by the classical pathway. Bacterial polysaccharides present on the cell wall or the cell membrane also have the capacity to activate complement. For example, mannose bound lectin has the capacity to activate the alternative complement cascade. Bacteria in serum and other tissues like gram-negative bacteria need protection from the effects of complement. So one of the strategies adapted by bacteria is to have a poor activation of complement. The role of capsule in bacterial virulence is protection of the bacteria from the complement. These capsules mainly prevent activation of complement, thus inhibit the ensuing of an inflammatory response. These polysaccharide capsules basically try to hide the bacterial components such as LPS peptidoglycan, which can induce the alternate complement pathway. Some capsules have the capacity of producing non-stabilizing surface so that the alternative pathway convertase does not get stabilized. Other strategy which can be adapted is accelerating the breakdown of the complement components by microbial products such as factor H. As you can see in this diagram, the C3b is prevented from attacking the cell wall by the presence of an unfriendly capsule which does not allow stabilization of the complement protein. Principal targets of complement on gram-negative bacteria is the lipopolysaccharides. These lipopolysaccharides serve as the attachment sites for the C3b. This basically triggers the alternative pathway for activation. In the later stage, it also binds to the C5b. Certain bacterial strains produce an enzyme known as C5aase. This C5aase acts as a virulence factor by proteolytically cleaving and thereby inactivating the C5a complement protein. Bacterial capsules also inhibit the formation of C3b complex on the surface. If the bacteria is successful in getting opsonized with the C3b, the subsequent formation of C5b will be prevented, and thus the membrane attack complex formation will also be prevented. Some bacteria such as Neisseria meningitidis have a capsule which is made up of polysaccharides such as sialic acid. This sialic acid containing capsule has the capacity to bind to factor H as shown in the diagram. This factor H then acts for the degradation of the C3b. This degradation of C3b is brought about by yet another factor known as factor I. This factor I is a serine protease, meaning it will bring about cleavage at the site in the protein C3b where serine is present. As we discussed in the previous slide, bacteria can secrete certain proteases which basically bring about breakdown of the C5a, thus preventing formation of the membrane attack complex and allowing the bacteria to survive inside the host for a longer period of time. Some strains have the capacity to downregulate complement activation by interacting with another protein known as the C4BP, that is the C4b binding protein, as you can see in this diagram over here. So this C4b binding protein basically acts as a cofactor for I-mediated degradation of the C4b component of the classical pathway, that is the C3 convertase, also known as C4b2A. This C4 binding protein also inhibits activation of the alternative pathway. Proteolytic cleavage mainly inactivates the C5a. Some bacteria have the ability to produce LPS with long and intact O antigen side chains, and they can prevent the killing of the bacteria by effective MAC killing. In this, mainly the MAC complex, that is the membrane attack complex, is held too far, that is the distance is very large, and due to this formed it is not very effective. So some bacteria are not killed or lysed in the serum by the complement membrane attack. Such type of bacteria are known to be serum resistant. One example of such bacteria are the gram-negative bacteria that cause systemic infections are serum resistant. Gram-positive bacteria are naturally serum resistant because cells are not enclosed in an outer membrane. Pathogens are able to inhibit activity of the complement components by destroying one or more of the complement components. For example, Pseudomonas aeruginosa produces an extracellular elastase enzyme. This enzyme has the capacity to inactivate components of the complement cascade. Complement deviation is another strategy adapted by bacteria to evade the complement components. So some species manage to avoid lysis by deactivating complement activation sites, either a secreted decoy protein or to a position on the bacterial surface which is distant from the membrane. That is, bacteria will have certain decoy proteins, that is non-functional proteins on their surface, which do not have the capacity to elicit an immune response by activating the complement components. On the other hand, the position of the bacterial surface may be such that the membrane attack complex, as shown here, will not be able to get inserted inside. Another strategy adapted by bacteria is resistance to insertion of the terminal complement component, that is MAC, or the membrane attack complex. Gram-positive organisms usually have a very thick peptidoglycan layer. As you can see over here, the peptidoglycan layer present in gram-positive bacteria is much thicker compared to the gram-negative bacteria. This leads to prevention of insertion of the lytic C5b9 membrane attack complex into the bacterial cell membrane. Many capsules function in a similar manner. Now let us move on to another strategies adapted by bacteria to evade the host immune response. Usually on the host epithelial surface, a number of antibacterial substances such as the secretory antibody IgA is present. This IgA protects the host by bringing about opsonization of bacteria which are trying to enter into the host cells and generates an immune response against them. But the bacteria are successful in avoiding this particular action of IgA and gain entry inside the host cell. So after breaching the epithelial surface, the major defenses which come into play are inflammation, complement cascade, phagocytosis. Also, the antibody mediated immune system and the cell mediated immune system become activated. The host and pathogen are thus known to be co-evolving. So if the pathogen is successful in evading the host defense, then some other strain of bacterial pathogen may have probably used the same strategy in some other situation. As I said, this is mainly due to the capacity of bacteria to evolve very rapidly in relation to their host cells. So the most feasible anti-host strategies are likely to have been tried out and exploited completely by number of bacteria, which may be still unknown to us. So the ability to defeat the immune response plays a major role in the virulence of a bacteria. Let us see some of the strategies adapted by the bacteria to avoid the host specific and non-specific humoral factors. The first strategy for immune evasion is tolerance. Tolerance is basically immunologically specific reduction in immune response to a given antigen. That particular antigen will not be able to elicit a definite amount of immune response necessary for reduction of bacteria in the host cells. A tolerance to a bacterial antigen involves a particular deficiency in relation to specific antigens in a bacterium. That is, no proper immune cells will be generated. So the poor immune response to appropriate antigen of a parasite facilitates the process of infection. Tolerance can involve either the antibody mediated immune system or may involve the cell mediated immune system. It can also involve combined action or both arms of the immune response, that is the AMI and the CMI. Tolerance to an antigen can arise by three possible mechanisms. First one is fetal exposure to antigens. In the fetus stage, Immune system in the body is still being developed. If in the fetus stage the bacteria or parasites are able to persist in the blood or the systemic blood flow for a very long period of time, then the fetal immune system will fail to recognize these molecules as foreign, giving the bacteria or the parasite a advantage for survival and evading the immune system. The second mechanism in tolerance is high persistent dose of circulating antigen. This strategy basically involves a very high dose of bacterial antigens present in the circulatory system, which does not give the host a chance to generate immune response as high as the number of antigens present in the circulation. The third and the most interesting mechanism is molecular mimicry. So bacterial antigen basically tries to become similar to the host antigens. These antigens, which are similar to host antigen, basically generate an immune response against that antigen, which will give a very weak degree of tolerance. The similarity between the bacterial antigen and the host antigen is known as molecular mimicry. In this, the bacteria is basically trying to copy the antigens of the host cells to avoid the immune response. The antigenic determinants of bacteria are so closely chemically related to the host that the self components, immunological cells, do not have the capacity to distinguish between the two. So bacterial capsules play a very important role in molecular mimicry. Bacterial capsules are composed of polysaccharides. These polysaccharides are very similar to the host polysaccharides which are present in the ECM or the connective tissue of the host. Due to this, these antigens or polysaccharides are not immunogenic. So antigenic mimicry or camouflage involves incorporation of the host proteins. Example of this is Stachystome. Stachystome coats itself with the ABO and the HLA antigens. This basically helps Stachyosomes to escape the ADCC mediated by IgE. Example of molecular mimicry involves nematodes such as Trichinella spiralis and Echinococcus granulosa in the larva stage. These nematodes in the larva stage acquire a large number of immunoglobulins on the cell surface. These immunoglobulins are very similar in their structure to the human host. Due to this, a very weak immune response is generated against these larvae. Viral influenza utilizes the antigenic camouflage strategy. So basically, in the antigenic mimicry, parasite genome encodes host-like gene sequences, and these gene sequences are expressed on their surface. Due to the similarity between the host and the cytic antigens, the immune response generated is quite weak. Let us move on to see the property of antigenic disguise. Some bacteria have the ability to coat themselves with host proteins. Examples of such proteins include fibronectin and antibody molecules. Some bacteria also use polysaccharides instead of proteins such as sialic acid, hyaluronic acid to coat themselves or their cell walls with these polysaccharides. This strategy basically involves hiding their own antigenic surface components by covering it with the host proteins or polysaccharides so that they are not identified by the host immunological response. Antigenic variation is yet another strategy adapted by a number of pathogens. So the surface lipopolysaccharide in Lyme disease of Spirochaete is one of the important examples of antigenic variation. Yet another bacteria, that is Campylobacter jejuni, is about alterations in enzymes involved in synthesis of surface structures. Neisseria meningitidis is also famous for bringing about antigenic variations in the structure of pili. Antigenic variation basically involves changing or bringing about small changes in the antigens that after a specific period of time the host immune response will not be able to identify this slightly modified antigen, and this will be responsible for bringing about the disease. Immunosuppression. Mainly virus and protozoa cause immunosuppression, that is deficiency of immune response in the infected host. The host shows depressed immune response to antigens in general, including those of an infecting pathogen. This suppressed immune response is mainly observed during chronic bacterial infections such as leprosy and tuberculosis. Inaccessibility to the immune response. So many pathogens avoid exposing themselves to the immune force, that is, they hide inside the host cells to avoid the immune response. Intercellular pathogens evade host immune response by staying inside the infected cell. Due to this, the microbial antigens are not expressed or exposed to the host immune system. Macrophages are one of the main cells involved in this. Macrophages support the growth of bacteria. Many bacteria such as Mycobacterium get inside the macrophages and stay there for a prolonged period of time until the host immune response has subsided. After the decrease in host immune response, these bacteria come into action and cause disease. So some pathogens also persist in the luminal surface of the gastrointestinal tract, the oral cavity and the urinary tract, or the lumen of the salivary glands, mammary glands, or the kidney tubules. All these sites, as I mentioned, are distant and the host WBCs or the immune cells are not able to penetrate these sites, thus protecting the bacteria for a prolonged period of time. Bacteria can induce ineffective antibodies to prevent lysis or killing. So, as we all know that many types of antibodies can be formed against a given antigen. These antibodies tend to have a variety in their ability to react with antigen known as avidity. So avidity is the ability of a specific antibody to bind to an antigen only. If the antibodies formed against the antigen are of low avidity or are directed against an unimportant antigenic determinant, they will have to generate a specific immune response. Such ineffective antibodies aid the pathogen by combining with surface antigen and blocking the attachment site for any functional antibody which may be generated or which may be present. Another strategy is antibodies absorbed by soluble bacterial antigens. Soluble antigens are able to combine with neutralizing antibodies before they reach the bacterial cells. For example, small amount of endotoxins may be released into the surrounding fluid by the gram-negative bacteria. These LPS molecules will attract the functional antibodies present in the circulation, will basically go and bind or combine with this LPS, which they think will be able to elicit an immune response. Due to this, the bacteria gets enough time to penetrate inside the host cell and cause infection. A very clever strategy adapted by certain bacteria is changing antigens during the course of an infection. So antigens vary within the host during the course of an infection. Alternatively, antigens may vary among multiple strains of a bacteria in a given population. Antigenic variation is an important mechanism used by pathogenic organisms for escaping the neutralizing activities of antibodies. This antigenic variation usually results from site-specific inversion of genes or rearrangement of DNA in microorganisms. Changing the antigens between two successive infections. So many pathogenic bacteria exist in nature as multiple serotypes. For example, Salmonella typhimurium is based on difference in cell wall O antigen and the flagellar H antigen. There are 80 different types of streptococci which have been identified to date. These bacteria basically change their surface antigen between two successive infections in host, giving them a survival advantage. We have also seen over 100 strains of Streptococcus pneumoniae are present depending on their capsular polysaccharide antigens. Based on minor differences in the cell surface structure chemistry, there are multiple serotypes of Vibrio cholerae, Staphylococcus aureus, Escherichia coli, Neisseria gonorrhea present. All these can change their antigens between infections and thus no proper immune response is generated against them. So we have seen large number of strategies adapted by bacteria to evade the immune response generated by the host cells. These are the references. Thank you so much.